Hello, this is David Harper. Welcome to a brief introduction to the Foundations of Risk Management topic, which is the first topic in the FRM. Here's the notation that we use, P1.T1. The P1 stands for Part 1 as opposed to Part 2 of the FRM. And then within Part 1 of the FRM, as you probably know, there are 4 topics. So we're starting with Topic 1, or T1, then T2, T3, and T4. And then when we get to Part 2 of the FRM, we start with T5, which happens to be market risk. So in this brief video, I'm not going to review any of the assigned readings, just want to give you a taste or introduction to the foundations topic and what we generally care about in foundations. And it includes these ideas: a helicopter view, which includes the question of what is the definition of risk? Turns out not to be an easy question to answer. What does corporate risk look like? And risk governance. We also have in this foundations topic case studies, and we've had these for several years, and these are really relevant and important to the candidate. Then we have a new reading by John Hall on the credit crisis, as you might expect, and we also have theory on the capital asset pricing model, which is controversial or debatable, because we can certainly take the position that in practice the capital asset pricing model isn't realistic and isn't used by many practitioners. Of course we can take that view, but from the perspective of the FRM, some proficiency in the capital asset pricing model is important. I will tell you now. It comes up in Part 2 of the FRM as well. One of the reasons is simply that Hello, this is David. Welcome to an updated video review from Michael Miller's Mathematics and Statistics for Financial Risk Management. We are in Topic 2, Quantitative Analysis, and this is Chapter 2. It's called Probabilities, and it's the first chapter in a sequence that introduces the core statistics portion of the FRM Part 1. So this is a very important sequence of concepts in the FRM syllabus. Matthew Miller has now been assigned, this is the assigned author, for this portion of statistics for several years in the FRM syllabus. So it is seasoned, and it is also contains several highly testable concepts, I would say, on the one hand, and also, just as importantly, on the other hand, many of these concepts show up verbs, what I call the action verbs. And the point here is that it's a continuous continuous random variable, so very common, but also simulation can say that the defined joint probability, the probability I'm going to do the Hi, this is David. Welcome to a review of Chapter 2 from John Hole's Risk Management and Financial Institutions. This chapter is just called Banks, and it contains only qualitative learning objectives, so we don't have any of those quantitative action verbs like compute or calculate. We just have here identify, distinguish, explain, describe. And so we don't have to do calculations really, although most of these ideas are fundamental to banking and therefore they are important to the FRM, and some of them show up later in the FRM, if not once, but several times. So just for example, this second to last one here, describe the distinctions between a banking book and the trading book of a bank. Well, that shows up later in the Basel regulations. So we'll definitely useful material here for the exam, if not in general. And it starts with a very generic learning objective: identify the major risks faced by a bank. Well, the introduction here is credit risk, market risk, and operational risk. And I hope these are familiar because these are major topic categories in their own right in the Part 2 FRM. The FRM split used to be one exam, and it's been almost a decade actually. It was about 2008 that the FRM split into Part 1 faced by a bank, capital, external, to the extent that there's apples to fee. The bank ends up selling those rather than and that is they do not intend related to the asymmetric information and the other problems. Hi, this is David. Welcome to Part 1, Topic 4, Valuation. Linda Allen's Chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 2 is Quantifying Volatility in VAR Models. Chapter 3 is Putting Value at Risk to Work. And the associated workbook is T4.Allen.2, 2 because it's Chapter 2, or starts with Chapter 2. And then VAR, which is, of course, Value at Risk. That workbook contains several worksheets, including most relevant an example or the illustration of portfolio value at risk. That includes classic 2-asset, but also Jorian's 3-asset delta normal VAR. And then the Taylor series approximation is illustrated with Black-Scholes option valuation, and that's of medium relevance. And then the most complicated worksheets here in this workbook are also the least relevant from an exam perspective, but there is an example of the structured Monte Carlo simulation, and that includes the Klossky decomposition. And so Chapter 2, Quantifying Volatility in the VAR Models. So this Linda Allen reading is now 10 years old. We'll see how long it survives in the FRM curriculum, but she starts it off with some very basic idea that although we oftentimes use an assumption of normal returns, that's not actually what we see in markets. So financial asset returns tend to be non-normal, specifically skewed with heavy or fat tails, and we know that's distribution as in, and then we shift into to estimate current and give being very pragmatic with the way that the chap is our invariance. All the returns this was $7.88. Now we know at least in Part 2 structured Monte